Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of VMTV Vaults with myself, Kyle Dimond, and my guest for this episode, Mr. Mason Jones. Mason debuted in the UFC earlier this year after being a double weight world champion in Cage Warriors. He came up short in his UFC debut against Mike Davis, but it was a very close fight with a lot to build on. And a great fight as well. So we can't wait to watch this second one, which is coming up on the 5th of June. It is against Alan Patrick, who is a bit of a veteran in the UFC at this point. And so we talked about that. We talked about training over in the States and the differences between that and being in Wales. And just about recovering from that first loss and rebuilding yourself. Without further ado, Mason the Dragon Jones. Let's just start with the UFC debut then.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the really generic Joe Rogan question to start.
No, that's cool.
Did anything surprise you about the fight?
Yeah, so actually, yes, for a change. Normally, I say no, but so his body positioning was weird. So what I mean is when you normally fighting someone, it's just the way they stand in front of you. So he stood a little bit more to the right than I expected, and he was right in line with my right hand, which if I had thought about it and started firing my right hand with a lot more intent, would have worked out well. But obviously I had my hands low. I didn't really perform well. But he killed my whole calf kick. He just completely removed my calf kick from the equation, and it really sort of broke up my whole game plan. As well as some other things that obviously I don't like to make excuses. But there's some other things that didn't really go well for me. They just all add up, and I just made one too many mistakes. And like I've said in previous interviews, I think if I'd fixed one of the many mistakes I made or adjusted to, I still think I would have won that fight. Like considering when we look back on it, there was like 5 or 6 things that went wrong for me, whether in there or before. And then you're looking at it, and I still lost the split. Like one referee still thought I still thought I'd won, and the other two obviously thought Mike had won. So it was close, but like I said, close doesn't mean anything in this game. It's all about who wins and who loses, and I didn't. So
that must be tough, right? Because like you said, like you didn't feel like you performed, and you can spot multiple things that you did wrong. And like you said, even with that, maybe just one of those things would have been enough to get you that close fight. So is it hard to not beat yourself up too much after the fight when it's like one little fix and you might have got the victory on a different night?
Immediately after, yeah, because like I put my hands up after the last round had finished, and I remember walking back to my corner, and my coaches looked at me and said, "Oh, look, we don't know." I said, "No," I said, "I've lost." I said, "It's done," and they just said, "Look, don't worry about it." And I was like, obviously that part's hard. Like immediately when their hands raised, that's a hard thing to swallow. But by the time we got out of the cage and walked back to the media, I'd sort of just come to terms with it. To be fair, like it's not my first loss. I know it's my first loss in my pro career, but I've lost thousands and thousands of times, and I've competed at high levels in judo and lost. I've competed at high levels in BJJ. I competed at high levels in most things and lost before. So it's nothing new for me, and it's something that doesn't really bother me. But obviously, it just irritates you because like these questions go through your head. But like I keep quoting Derek Lewis all the time in interviews, which is a weird one to quote for this, but something he said really stuck with me. And he always said that it doesn't matter whether you're performing at 10%, it doesn't matter whether you feel 100%, all that matters is who wins. And that really stands with me because I remember one of his fights where he did absolutely terrible for 5 rounds and literally got an absolute shoe-in. And then in the 5th round, he knocks the guy out cold. And they asked him about it, and he said he just couldn't get going. But obviously, he's always got that right hand to unload, and that's something that always sticks by me at the minute because, like, to take a pasting for 5 rounds and know you're losing each round, which he did, and know that you just can't get into it, and then to still manage to dig deep and knock someone out in the last 30 seconds, that takes a lot of spirit. So yeah, that's why it sticks by me.
People always say, because I've spoken to quite a few fighters now, as normally around this time as well, like after a UFC debut and stuff, people always talk about, whenever they talk about elite competition in sport, that when you get to those top levels, it's a game of inches. And was that Was that a big thing for you? Obviously, with your debut compared to your fights in Cage Warriors, did it feel like that when you were in there?
No. So that walk was insane. Just to start, like the walk and the setup and stuff was just insane. Like I felt relaxed and I felt at home in there. And like what you're saying, we call it the 1%. And to be fair, I just like he had a good game plan. So Mike's game plan was he was going to win the first minute and the last minute, which meant high volume the first minute, high volume the last minute. The first round, he obviously clinched for those takedowns. And then the second round, I clinched with overwhelming volume. And then the third round, he won the first minute. I won the next three. He won the last two. The last one. And it just comes down to when I asked about it, because I won all the stats. And like, don't get me wrong, like this is an excuse, because when we was in there, like I knew that he had nipped on that last round. Like I knew myself, like I knew I was down a round in the first. I knew the second round I sort of squeezed it, but it was too close to tell. And I knew the third round was going to be his. But when I spoke about it with the referee afterwards, what they said was his significance was slightly more significant than mine. And they said, even though he didn't have as many, they caused more damage than mine did. And he sort of had more impactful moments in the fight. And then that just sort of like completely sort of relates that a lot of this time it isn't about worrying about sort of making sure that you're up on the stats. It's all about just going out there and literally just trying to cause as much damage as possible. And like I didn't do that in this fight. Like this fight, it got to a point where, because I knew I was behind in the first, I was just chasing those rounds, and I knew I just had to nip the rounds. And like if I done well, one thing, if I kept my hands a little bit higher, if I had found some way to get my feet moving, because my feet were just ridiculously heavy, my legs were just burnt out. But if I'd taken him down in the last minute of the last round and nipped that round, if I had done what my coaches were telling me to do and literally just draw him in, and if I had tied him up in the last minute, I just made it a wrestling fight. Like I think I would have won if I'd done one of those 5 things. I probably would have won the fight. But like I said, this isn't something you can look back on. This is just something you just sort of deal with and go from there. So it is part of the parcel to me. There's only so much you can do. It's not something that really bothers me now. I just deal with it and go from there.
Do you feel like, obviously, I get it's a weird question, right? Because you learn a bunch of lessons from every fight, and it's kind of hard to like quantify that. But do you feel like you learned more lessons from this one fight than any previous ones?
Oh yeah, of course. Like any fight you lose, you learn more from than any other fight, because there's a lot more negatives to focus on. And like this is one thing I do a lot. So I don't like my coaches giving me positives after fights. They do, but I really don't like it. I don't see the point of positive comments after a fight. Like I know what I did right. I don't really need to point out what I did right, but every time you point out something I did wrong is something I can improve on. Like it's very hard to improve on something you did right. Like it's not saying it's impossible, but if you're doing something right already, then obviously it's not something that needs to be worked on. Whereas things you're doing wrong are things that need to be corrected. And it's only so much you can correct at one time. There's only so much you can improve on while tightening up other areas. That's why it makes people like Max Holloway against Kelvin Guitar, when he put on such an overwhelming performance, such an exceptional thing, because he's tightened up just the right amount of things and kept his already strong moments, or his strong assets as strong. And it is a very hard thing to do.
Is that kind of with you saying about how you don't like taking too many positives from a fight, and that makes sense with what you said about how this fight being different in terms of there were things you didn't expect. Because when I've spoken to you in the past, it's been, whenever I've spoken to you after a Cage Warriors fight and I've asked that question, like you said, it's always been, no, it went how I thought. So how was that different with this fight versus the fights in Cage Warriors in terms of just like regrouping after that? Because like you said, even though you've lost plenty of times, you haven't done it in your professional MMA career. And so with Cage Warriors, what's that period like after compared to the times in Cage Warriors? Because the times in Cage Warriors, it felt very much like you'd say, nothing really surprised me. It went how I thought. On to the next one. It was almost like a routine. It felt like I remember you saying you had like a bunch of names you wanted to get through, so it was just kind of like next one, let's go.
Well, to be fair, all it means is really that I'm on unstable footings. I'm on unstable foundations. Like no matter how well that debut still went, it still ended with a loss. And like the UFC, they only want winners. That's the way it is. So for me, it just sort of it ups the ante. Like there's no pressure. I never feel pressure, but it just gives me that extra push to really make an impact. And like I'm not arrogant to assume that what I've done previously gives me any leeway. Like if I lose this fight, then UFC could cut me straight up. And like that doesn't bother me in the slightest because this is the organization I want to be part of. And all it means is we went back and we rebuilt some of the stuff we've been doing. I think we got a bit lenient in certain things. COVID really didn't help, but everyone can say that. And it's a problem for every single person, not just for me. But some of the processes I've been doing, we'd sort of got a bit lazy with. Like for one, my wrestling. So I was penetrating on my entries very well, getting nice and low. And then as soon as I entered, I was rising up too high. I wasn't binding deep enough on the legs, and there was no drive. So literally all he had to do was every time I entered was literally just lift me up, and I was already on my way up. So it was easy for him to drag me back my feet. Whereas like in that third round, he was more tired than I was, and I put 2 good entries in, 2 good shots. Whereas if I pushed the level changes and I'd stuck in on those, I probably would have taken him down. Like whether I would have kept him down is another thing. I've done a lot of work on keeping someone down, but again, I don't know how good Mike was getting back to his feet. Obviously, you saw I'm quite good at getting back to my feet. Yeah, especially in that fight. But yeah, it's just another what if question. What ifs don't really help. All that matters is working on what you know you did wrong. So I rebuilt a lot of things, tightened up a lot of things I should have. But again, this is all hearsay until you see me compete. So until June 5th comes around and you see what I can do, then again, I'm just speaking to my ass.
Fair enough. How long have you been out in Vegas now? It's been quite a few weeks, right?
Not in Vegas. Ooh.
Oh, did I get that wrong?
Yeah, I'm in Sacramento.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, so I've been in Sacramento. This will be my 8th week. After this weekend. So Sunday I fly to Vegas. I went to Vegas for 2 days, like 2 weeks ago, to visit the PI, pick up an Aura ring and all sorts, and do some testing. But yeah, I've been based and training out of Team Alpha Male. I get a question a lot, which is why I choose Team Alpha Male. I've had people messaging me on Instagram and all sorts to ask this question. And it's an easy answer to fix. The amount of sparring partners, and to be fair, like when I first started going to Team Alpha Male back in 2018, it was a bantamweight gym. There was so many good bantamweights there. Some good featherweights, but it was mostly a bantam featherweight gym. So for someone competing in the bantamweight division, it was perfect. Now, I think there's more high-level lightweights and welterweights than there is really bantams who are constantly in the gym. Like we got Chris Gonzalez, who's a Bellator fighter, D1 level wrestling. Obviously Sage. Sage speaks for himself. High-level striking. There's Slava, which is he's a world champion kickboxer, Russian kickboxer. You've got Max Griffin, a welterweight, another big body I spar with. Mike, what's Mike's name? Michael Malott. So Michael Malott is a ex-Bellator fighter who's currently back on a tear after winning his first fight back in a while. He's one of the most technical fighters I've trained with, and he actually pads me when I'm out here quite a lot. Obviously, Andre Feely, again, another massive striker. Alex Munoz, UFC lightweight, who's unbelievably good wrestling. Ryan Loader, who's a D1 level wrestler, who's competing in amateur 185s. Massive guy, but perfect like I always say, if I can start defending stuff against him, I'll defend anyone my own weight. And then there's a couple more people I probably forgot. Obviously, Darren Elkins a feather. There's some more like lightweights and different things, and different people who all have their sort of their advantages and their advantages to spar with. So for me, like, this is perfect. And like a lot of gyms, like ATT, I know does this. Different gyms that you train and it's hard to get in with a lot of the high level pros. Like, everyone has their own training partners you want to train with, and no one really wants to train with people who are coming through the doors. Whereas, like, I've earned my place here. I know when I come here, I can get some high level training. The only thing you sort of miss out in Team Alpha or Male, which I think you get in a lot of major gyms, is one-on-one coaching. To be fair, I got a good relationship with Mike, so he pads me a lot. I've been doing some privates with Danny. But like, that'll be the only thing I'll improve on, is to bring my own coaches out here. Like, I've got some really high level coaches for jiu-jitsu and striking, so bringing those out here would help. It just shows that really our wrestling's slightly behind. And a lot of the wrestling in the UK is quite basic. It's normally just sort of sprawl defense and our offensive stuff is good, but it's just the defensive stuff. So that's why you see a lot of British guys in the moment getting taken down and controlled, just because a lot of the defensive stuff they do is completely different to what I've done previously. So I've just been working non-stop, working hard, and hopefully you'll see the difference in this debut, where I go out and I school a veteran in Alan Patrick.
When you picture this fight, because like I said, with the Cage Warriors thing, where you had like a bunch of people that you wanted to fight, it was kind of, like I said, like almost like a routine at times, where it was just like, okay, well, what are we doing next? When you picture this fight, what comes to mind?
So Alan is a bit of 37. He's from the Amazonians in Brazil. This is his 9th UFC. He's had 9 UFC fights. So I think this will be his 10th. Like I said, he's a veteran. But I think his style is very, very beatable. He throws a lot of single shots. He prefers to wrestle. Like, he's a Brazilian wrestler who hunts for double legs. He always does the same sort of entries. He's got some wild kicking that should be fine to evade as long as you manage the distance. And I think I outstrike him 100 times out of 100. His wrestling exchanges, he looks very strong. It's something that I prepared for. But yeah, I see the fight going one way, and that's me just overwhelming and just taking the pace from the start and controlling. If it doesn't go that way, we've also planned for, if his wrestling is very strong and that he does manage to get those takedowns, we've planned for that as well. But again, you never really know what to expect until the first punch is thrown. So do you know what I mean? It's just get in there and I've done everything I can to prepare. This last week, I'm going to do everything I can to prepare, and then we'll go in there and we'll see who's the best.
I think that's a good note to leave it on, mate. So thank you for your time, and can't wait for the fight. And all the best, mate.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the interview.
No problem.
After I win this one, we'll do another one.
Yeah, cool. Let's do it,
Definitely.
man. Sweet. All right, all the best, mate. Nice one.
Cheers, boss. Bye.
Cheers,
bye.
Man.
Bye.
Thank you for watching this episode of VMTV Vaults with myself and Mr. Mason Jones. As I said in the start, Mason is fighting Alan Patrick on the 5th of June. That is a UFC Fight Night card, if you were wondering. So make sure you don't miss that. Also, make sure you don't miss any episodes of VMTV Vault or episodes of The Violent Mike that come out every Friday at 8. You can do that by hitting subscribe. Until the next one, goodbye.